Hey, what's up, everyone? Welcome back to The Clean Pin. I'm John.
Eric.
And we just saw the Iron Claw movie last night. We would have liked to have gotten around to talking about it then, but just couldn't. But we want to talk about it now. We have some thoughts. If you saw our previous video, we talked about Chris Von Erich not being in the movie. It was confirmed to us.
Yeah,
not in the movie.
Not in the movie.
Not in the movie at all. Completely not in the movie.
And I'll just give the disclaimer of spoiler alerts.
Yeah.
So if
there will be spoilers in this
there will
movie.
be spoiler alerts in this video.
Yeah.
So if you don't want any spoiler alerts, then yeah, just skip this video. Go.
Yeah.
That's okay. If you don't mind, stick around, or if you have seen it and you want to discuss it with us, feel free to leave your thoughts in the comments. Maybe you have the same thoughts that we did, because I have a lot, going on. So let's want to get to it.
Yeah, let's get right into it, man.
I want to start off with something.
Go ahead. Get to it.
I'm gonna start off, before we talk about what they did in the movie and stuff. I want to talk about the decisions to pick these certain actors.
Yes.
All right.
The casting choices were very interesting.
Okay. Now, the true wrestling fans, we're geeks. We're really big geeks, right?
Mm-hmm.
And we shouldn't take things as too far, but we do. And I just want to say there's just one thing that I couldn't stop thinking about, and it just kept distracting me, because I've seen the Von Erich matches over and over. I've seen so many over and over and over again. I love to do on my free time. I still watch them. So when I'm watching the movie, I couldn't help but Jeremy Allen White as Kerry. Honestly, great actor, great guy, probably.
Not a knock against it.
He had no business playing Kerry. He was
I agree.
so small. And look, I'm a short king also. I'm 5'3". I'm just saying, Jeremy Allen White though,
It's jarring.
It
took you out of, especially.
Oh man, it did.
If you're not a wrestling fan, then it's probably not something you'll care about too much. Maybe you may or may not. If I'm thinking from the average viewer that goes to watch movies, they probably won't care.
Yeah.
It'll probably be like whatever. If they're just watching it, they're watching it like completely unfamiliar with pro wrestling, or maybe just completely unfamiliar with the Von Erichs in general, they probably won't care. But yeah, as a wrestling fan, it took me out of it.
Yeah,
it took me out of it. It was very hard for him to be believable to me as Kerry Von Erich.
Especially when you've seen so many videos of Kerry, and then
and again, not a knock on the actor.
Not a knock on the actor. He's a great actor.
Yeah.
But man, it was so noticeable. Like when you have Kevin and David, and then just Kerry in it, and Kerry was just so small.
Yeah.
Frame so tiny.
Having to reach up to hug everyone.
Skin, it's so pale. And
yes.
I'm just like, why did I get it? He's a big name.
Wasn't tan, yeah.
But
weird.
just because you have a big name that's gonna take on that role doesn't mean he's perfect
right.
for it.
It doesn't mean he's right for it.
It really wasn't. And the funny thing was, Zac Efron did such a great job. Zac Efron is like such a big actor.
Yeah, he did. He did good.
Ever since he was back in the day, he was the pretty boy heartthrob. But now, but it was like I told you before in our conversations, like when he made Bundy on Netflix, that's when I started to really respect him as an actor.
Yeah,
and now after this, even more, I think Zac Efron is one of the best actors out there.
Yeah.
He did such a great role playing Kevin, and he himself even didn't really look like Kevin.
Yeah.
But
his body type was more like
Kerry. And we're talking about it because,
and he had the tan,
Kerry
too.
had the tan skin, and Zac Efron had the tan skin. And I'm like, why didn't they just pick
and just the musculature,
Zac Efron to play Kerry? That would have been perfect.
Yeah,
perfect. He was huge in that movie. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Well, one more thing I wanted to say about the Kerry character in the movie, and I no knock on the actor again, but because maybe the director led him this way. When we hear old interviews about Kerry, he's always the funny guy, a prankster, a jokester, a talkative guy, making everybody laugh. We've heard that so many times from old interviews, and the Kerry in this movie was nothing like that. So not only did he not look nothing like Kerry, but he didn't act at all like how people would say Kerry was outside of the ring. He was most of the movie, he was just kind of staring off into space a lot of times like this.
Or he was very reserved.
And a couple of times he'd explode as if like roid rage almost. Yeah, they did that a few times in the movie. Like,
They did a couple of times.
And he would start screaming. I'm like, is this? I don't think this is how the Carrie. I've heard so many interviews with Kevin when he talks about Carrie, about how Carrie was just this funny guy who just constantly joked around,
larger than life.
Yeah.
And I don't think that's the other thing too. It's just like when you hear, to your point, what you're saying about Carrie, when you hear people who actually knew Carrie talk about him, and a lot of them say the term, larger than life. That's something that you hear a lot describing Carrie. That Carrie was this larger than life personality, and to be honest, it just, again, not a knock on Jeremy Allen White, especially for those of you that might be fans of his work and stuff like that. I haven't really, I know of him because of you, but I haven't really seen him in a whole lot. This was my first exposure to him. I just, for the role of Carrie, I just don't think it was the right role for him. And he just didn't convey to me that larger than life personality that you hear about when people talk or reference Carrie.
He
Von
almost
Erich.
seemed like a damaged soul in the movie, because this is him most of the movie, just kind of quiet and just staring, and then
emo, kind of emo.
And then when he talks, he's very, very soft spoken.
Well, look, what you said yesterday, I think, hit it right on the head. You said that he came across as very stoic. That's what you said.
Stoic.
That's what you said. That he came across very stoic. And again, when you hear people that knew Carrie talk about Carrie, that's not really a word that comes up. You know, I mean, stoic is not a word.
Funny story.
that comes
Like
up.
I remember, I believe it. Oh shoot, I don't remember what. It could have been the tragedy of WCCW when Kevin told a funny story about when they had a photo shoot and that Carrie took a bunch of like fungus foot stuff and put it behind Kevin as if that was his stuff behind the locker. And then when the photos came out, Kevin was like, Carrie? You know, and it was funny. They laughed, and it was a joke. He was a prankster. He was a funny guy.
Yeah, he was
but
a ripper.
this Carrie portrayed in this movie, he almost seemed like a damaged soul. Just
even almost from the beginning. Almost.
yeah.
I mean,
that's one thing I kind of want. It almost seemed like also that the director was trying to make him do roid rages. That the only reason why I said that is because we all know that Carrie did steroids.
Yeah.
As that the doctor prescribed him. Kevin has said this in interviews that back then it was legal for, it was in high school, I think.
Yeah.
And it was legal to give the high school students that he wasn't breaking any laws. But it seemed like in the movie that they were trying to show rages, because if you ever noticed, like, he's always quiet, he's always stoic. But then here, one example was when they said that David was gonna go for the belt, and he was just quiet, and then he goes, "Fuck yeah, David!" and hugs him, and I'm like, And then when he gave the dad the gun, he's like, "Why don't you shoot the gun?" I no, Carrie, we're not gonna shoot it. No, what the fuck not?
Yeah,
and I'm
he
just like, whoa.
he flew off the handle.
What's with these roid rages?
When he gave Fritz the gun, the infamous gun that he also ended up taking his own life with. They showed him, he was just like, "Hey, are you gonna go shoot it?" And he's like, "Yeah, I'll do it later. I'm not gonna do it right now." He's like, "Well, why the F not?" You know what I mean? He got really mad, like he flew right off the handle.
Did not seem nothing at all like the Carrie that we've heard so much about.
And look, maybe stuff like that did happen. It's not to say that maybe stuff like that, maybe stuff like that did happen with Carrie, but it just, I don't know. There's just a lot about Carrie, and I think me and you can both agree on this. The way he was portrayed, or the way he was conveyed in the movie, just didn't really. And again, look, I get it. It's a Hollywood movie. They're not thinking about so much as catering to the wrestling fan. They're wanting to tell a story that's a part of wrestling to a broader audience.
Yeah, but moving on from that. The guys who played, we told you about what we felt about Carrie. Kevin did great. Zac Efron did great. The guys who played David and Mike.
Oh, they were
really
fantastic.
Great.
Fantastic.
Really
I think they did a
amazing
great job.
Amazing. And
great job. David.
They let us a little bit in more to the life of Mike. With the music.
With the music.
And, they did mention the whole, "Oh, Dad, look at those camera angles," and they showed Fritz, in his like, "Who cares about
camera angles?" Yeah, it's
and it showed. I think it portrayed Mike pretty right. Not exact, of course, but definitely right. And David was hilarious.
Very sympathetic.
Everything we hear about David in interviews, the actor portrayed it just like that. He was funny, just like Carrie was, and there's this funny scene. There's this really hilarious scene. Like, I already told you spoilers, but I guess that made them like. I'm assuming they put this scene in to make them seem like true brotherly. But there's a scene that threw me off for a second.
Which one was it?
In the beginning of the movie, Mike is banging on the door.
Oh,
And,
yeah.
and for some reason, when I first saw it,
David,
I was
yeah.
wondering, like, why did they put that in? They show David masturbating in the shower. I'm like, what? How did this make the cut? Why did this? But at the end, I was like, I started to think about it. Like, listen, like, it's a brotherly thing. You know, we all go through this with brothers probably. And, you know, I guess they wanted to also show living in a house with a bunch of brothers. There's only so many bathrooms.
There's
to go
only so
around.
many bathrooms.
That scene made me laugh, really.
Yeah, it's just kind of like you don't really have privacy. I guess was
funny.
kind of the underlying.
It was also very random. Like, whoa, what's
it's
going
like,
on?
all right, and it's just like, but yeah, I guess what they were trying to convey is that in a house full of a
Guys,
bunch of
a bunch of
brothers and
young
guys
boys,
and
young
that have
men.
to like share things, because that's the other thing too. Is just like throughout the course of the movie, they make it that like the whole thing with the brothers is just like they have to share a lot of things, but they also have to. They're like. And I don't know how true this was. Maybe there's a degree of truth to this, but they definitely do this. They're telling this thing in the movie that the brothers were kind of like responsible for each other.
Yeah.
Like the parents were like Fritz and Dory were like hands off. You know what I mean? It's just kind of like, hey,
to the point of
raise yourselves, handle it
to the
amongst
point
yourselves.
of it being dark.
Yeah,
it was
yeah.
like a scene where the last scene where Kevin was being told by Carrie, like, I don't know if I could keep doing this.
Yeah.
And then Kevin
Yep.
told the dad, and the dad's like, you boys handle that on your own. I'm like, whoa.
Yeah, exactly. And it
Whoa.
just kind of I don't know. Again, maybe there's some truth to that, but at the same time, it's hard to know if there is, because from what we know, and these are I'll link this article in the description below. From my understanding, Kevin had no involvement at all with this movie. He wasn't consulted on anything. Neither was Michael Hayes, by the way. That's another person that wasn't like people that were actually, I guess, there, you could say, for the most part. That were, and when I say there, I mean like intimately, like very close to the Von Erichs, as far as I know, didn't seem to be. Maybe some of them were, but at least in terms of like people like Kevin Von Erich, Michael Hayes, these people were not consulted at all, from the best of my understanding in regards to this. So again,
This is solely Hollywood.
yeah, so a lot of it we have to assume, because if you look at the very beginning of the movie, instead of saying based on a true story, it says inspired by a true
Inspired,
story.
yeah.
So you know that, okay, they're probably going to take a lot of liberties. A lot of this stuff is probably just going to be hearsay of things that they heard or things that they saw on Dark Side of the Ring.
Now, yeah,
and put into the movie,
speaking
or
of
rumors.
speaking
So-
of this, I wanted to say something. We don't have to spend too much time on this. Why did they make Doris Atkinson the mom was not a good mom in this movie?
Yeah, they made her
She-
seem very dismissive.
Yeah, and
of them
and look,
at times.
it's hard for
Yeah.
me to believe that. Yeah,
And very motherly.
we don't know much about Doris. We don't really know anything
Yeah.
about her, but it's hard for me to believe that she was the way she was in that movie.
Yeah, that she
I'm
was
sorry,
as dismissive.
yeah.
They made her seem very dismissive and very cold at times.
Yeah.
I mean, there was times where she was motherly, especially towards Mike. I think
Mm-hmm.
Mike was the one that she seemed to be the most motherly towards. And they almost, I guess, kind of make an implication that, I guess, since he was the more artistic and sensitive one, that he might have been her favorite.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
You know what I mean? And he was also the youngest in this movie. So it seemed like she had a degree of more sympathy and a little bit more compassion and maybe a little bit more motherly, instinct towards him
Yeah.
than the other brothers. It's not to say that she didn't love the rest of them, but it seemed like when it came to the other ones, it was
She
more
seemed
like,
cold.
hey, she seems,
Very
she
cold in
seemed
that
much
movie.
colder towards him,
Yeah.
and like, hey, and like the same thing with like Fritz, the way he comes out across.
We
the
all
road,
knew
it's
he
like-
was gonna be cold.
Yeah, exactly. It's just like you guys handle it amongst
Yeah,
yourselves.
she's pretty much the female Fritz.
We're not gonna parent
she's
you
She's
guys.
a female Fritz in the movie, and
Yes.
I'm like,
in that.
I
regard,
don't.
yeah.
I can't say anything. I don't know anything about her, but
Yeah,
it's still. It's hard for me to believe that, and I don't know
Exactly.
why. I don't know why. You know, I hope we're wrong. I hope she was
Yeah.
actually very motherly in real life. But yeah, they took liberties with little things like Hollywood things. Like I noticed when Mike got really, really sick, it was because when Gino kicked him in the shoulder. But in the movie, he does a drop kick. But the reason why I say it may seem like something small, but my thing was like, Gino was in the movie though.
Yeah, you already had him earlier. You might
So
as
why
well just
didn't they
make it
just-
true. Yeah.
You know what I mean? And he was, what was his partner in the beginning? Bruiser Brody.
Bruiser Brody.
Which,
He
did they
did-
tag team ever?
I don't know.
It was-
I can't remember.
You think it was just a
Maybe-
spot show? From,
Maybe it could have been, but the thing is, the guy that got to play Bruiser Brody, I'm sorry, but he was like barrel chested, so which it didn't really, and he
We're
was much
nitpicking
shorter.
now, but it's
He was
but,
much
yeah.
shorter, and it's just like he didn't really fit. Like I said, there's some casting choices in here that
Oh,
are
we'll get to
very
that. We'll
questionable.
get to that.
We'll get back to that.
In fact, you want to
But-
well, let's do this first. Let's do this first, because we're going to do this real fast.
Sure.
Lance Von Erich. Okay,
Yeah.
we were under the impression like there was going to be a lot more because
Yeah.
MJF.
'Cause they made
plays-
time, right, to put him in there.
And MJF is playing Lance Von Erich. That's pretty
Yeah.
big. So
It's a glorified cameo.
it was, yeah. I mean,
It's akin to
probably
a background
yeah,
cameo.
Yeah.
Because
it was like 20
he-
seconds of him on footage.
He doesn't speak. He doesn't. They basically just show him in just kind of a, whatchamacallit, montage kind of scene.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
I
and
believe,
in,
if I remember
and
correctly.
that's where we're talking about Hollywood
Yeah.
liberties, because the Lance Von Erich we see in the shows, he's kind of a timid guy. He's kind of just there.
Mm-hmm.
But where in this movie, even though it was a small cameo, they showed him like being a glory hog,
Yeah, like
which was kind of funny to me.
like being an egotistical like glory
yeah,
hog,
and I
like-
don't remember Lance Von Erich being like that at all.
Yeah, because
You
there's
know?
a point where he's there and he's doing a tag match with Kevin. It's a very short scene, by
Mm-hmm.
the way. It's like I said, I think it's part of. I want to say it was part of a montage, but I can't remember exactly.
No,
might
it
have
wasn't.
just been a whatever.
It wasn't.
It was just, or I think it was just more of a transitional scene, maybe then, where he's in the ring, he's working the match, and Kevin's asking to tag him, and he just like ignores
doesn't
him. He's
do
just
it.
like
Yeah,
flexing
he's taunting,
and
doing the-
showboating.
And I'm like, I
you
don't
know,
remember Lance being like that.
Yeah, it was just weird, and it was kind of like a completely.
Yeah, and
I
Kevin,
mean, maybe Lance Von Erich did that at some point in time, but I don't recall. We could be completely wrong. Maybe he did do that on occasion, but,
now.
or maybe towards the end of his tenure in WCCW, he did that stuff. But it was just weird. You know,
Now let's talk about this. Let's just get this out the way. We're being jerks in this video, aren't we?
yeah, the
we're
thing
gonna
is,
do
look,
it.
Look, I don't want to dissuade anybody from watching this movie.
I'll
but
give my rating at the end, but
yeah.
Ric
Good.
Flair.
Oh man. Okay. So the guy that they cast as Ric Flair, God bless him for his efforts.
Mm-hmm.
Another bad casting choice, in my opinion. The guy just, when he was doing the promo scenes, just didn't have the intensity. And that's the one thing. If you're a longtime wrestling fan, you know that especially once Ric Flair gets going and has that intensity going, where he's taking off the shoes,
Yeah.
or taking off clothes, or just taking off sunglasses, or just really looking into the camera, just really getting into it. He has this intensity about him that is fantastic. And this guy,
When he wooed, a lot
Yeah.
of people in the theater laughed.
yeah, we laughed because it was a very almost like
Woo!
timid, like just reserved woo. It just
People
he
in
did
the
not
theater
have-
really did laugh. That's
Yeah,
a shoot.
they
Like,
laughed.
they laughed.
They laughed.
I was kind of like laughing
Yeah,
too.
we
but
chuckled because it was the most unenergetic
wouldn't it be cool if
woo.
they? I listen. I know it does, probably
was
wouldn't
like a
make
whimper.
sense. That probably
Like, woo!
doesn't. That probably doesn't make as much sense because he's black. But wouldn't it still be cool if they had Jay Lethal with his
Man,
impression?
I would have preferred Jay
With it-
Lethal
with
at
that,
least
with that
because
perfect Ric Flair impression.
because the
Ooh,
thing
my
is
God.
he can match the intensity. This guy just look, the guy. It's not a knock, because again, the guy gave his best effort. I guess.
Yeah.
Maybe
We don't
he's
want to be
just-
like jerks. Like
Maybe he's just not all that familiar with Ric Flair. Maybe he just didn't study up enough. He just couldn't match the intensity that Ric Flair has when he does his promos. And it just wasn't there. It felt like a guy acting like a dollar store version of Ric Flair. That's really the best way I could describe it. He was like a dollar store version of Ric
Yeah.
Flair. He just did not have the intensity. He could not match the intensity of Ric Flair. So
no,
I didn't care for
Yeah,
him.
I mean, the lady who played Pam, Kevin's wife. Don't know much about Pam, but I loved her in the movie. I love the
I
character.
thought she was the character at least. Yeah.
Very very with her man. Very and I like how
Very
they
loyal.
I like how they put that in the end too.
Yes.
Like they've been married for over 40 years and they're still together.
Yep. Yeah,
God
loyal,
bless him.
Yeah, loyal, very loyal
She was
woman.
great. I
stood
love
by
the
her
character
man, very
of Pam.
supportive, very patient.
Yeah,
very patient.
very
with,
patient
with Kevin.
because they touched something in the movie that I always wondered about Kevin in real life, and they actually touched on it. They show a lot of Kevin's anxieties in the movie. Example, we've heard him say in interviews like, I don't believe in a Von Erich curse, but maybe this, I don't know if this is Hollywood or not, but they showed like it was in his head. Like there's scenes where he didn't want to hold his son.
Yeah,
And it's because he legitimately believed like he was cursed, and he didn't want to like
he didn't want to
give
pass pass it on.
It was
to
like
his
kind of
sons.
deep. It was kind of weird. And then that scene where I forgot why they were asking for it, but like he goes, "No, we're gonna give him the name Atkinson. That's our birth name." And she goes, and the wife says, like, use Von Erich or something to that effect. I don't remember exactly, but he's like, no, I know. No, not a curse, but you could tell in the movie that that's what they were trying to tell you. Like, there's anxiety going on in Kevin with all the bad things going on. Like, because they make it a point in the film, they'll keep saying it as the film goes on, is why do these things keep happening to us?
Yes.
You know what I mean?
That was a reoccurring thing.
That was a reoccurring thing about, like, Fritz not getting the belt. The NWA championship from the beginning, and then from what happened to Jack dying, and then
well, even
David.
before that, remember, like family members before that. Remember, they had mentioned Kevin mentioned something about Von Erich even before Jackie. Something happening to them. If I remember correctly, I can't remember specifically what it was, but then he talked about Jackie, and then
so that was a recurring thing, and they touched on the Kevin's anxieties, which I mean any human being probably would.
Absolutely,
You know what I mean? So the fact that they touched on that was like very interesting.
Yeah, I thought it was interesting. I don't know. Again, don't know how true that is. I mean, maybe the creators of the movie, maybe they talked to other people that knew Kevin and maybe expressed that. But obviously, again, from what we know, Kevin wasn't consulted at all. So again, that could have just been something that was made up for the movie. But it was an interesting thing to put in there. That he had reservations about a lot of things, especially regarding his kids, because of what was happening to him and his brothers. You know what I mean? The stuff that was happening to his family, this one tragedy after another, and him kind of taking a step back away from his wife and kids because he didn't want to put evil on them. You know what I mean? Like he was trying his best to be like, and his wife pleading with him like, hey, listen, we need you. And it's just like, it's nothing's gonna happen to them. You know what I mean? You need to like get that out of your head, like to the point where he was estranged.
That's why I love the character. I keep saying the character. She's a person, but the way how they portrayed Pam. In the movie, I like it a lot. So
even though she like kind of laid it out for him, like, hey, listen, there's only so much I could take before I have. I can't take no more.
That's the way it should be. In my opinion.
But she was still willing to like work through things with him. So I thought that was a nice sentiment in the movie. Bruiser Brody, the guy I think was way too barrel chested to be Bruiser Brody. It was weird. He was too short. Didn't really look like him. I mean, again, he was only in there briefly. The guy who did Gino, I think, he was okay as Gino.
I don't even remember what his face looked like.
Yeah, well, remember, because you only got mostly a side profile from him, except for when they were wrestling, you got a little bit more. Now, I guess he did okay.
I don't mean to beat a dead horse, but I'm going to do it anyway. Now, there's a really nice scene at the towards the end of the movie where Carrie, because he's the last brother to die, is on a boat ride.
Yeah.
And he sees Mike and he sees David, and then baby Jackie comes, and he's like a 7-year-old, and even though Carrie's an adult at this point, he still looks at the 7-year-old Jack and says, "Are you my big brother?" And then they hug, and it's really nice because it's all obvious fantasy, but it's still a nice it's a nice sentiment. It really is, and I don't mean to beat this dead horse, but wouldn't the movie have been more complete with Chris in it?
Yeah, I think so too. That's the other thing too. It's just like, especially, I think that would have been a great, because I mean, they make it pretty clear throughout the course of the movie that Mike is the one that really doesn't really want to have anything to do. The way they present him throughout the entire movie is like, he really doesn't want to have anything to do with being a wrestler. He doesn't talk about wanting to be a wrestler or anything. He just is kind of like, he talks very openly about his other interests in the movie, which is film stuff, you know what I mean, with video cameras and things like that, music. Like, they're definitely showing that, or they're portraying him as like the artistic, sensitive one that had other ideas of what he wanted to do and what he was passionate about, music and things like that. And I think that it would have been great to have Chris there because Kevin, David, and Kerry, it's pretty obvious that they're just like, they're the athletes, so it's almost like a foregone conclusion. We'll get into wrestling. They definitely portray Kevin as just, the first three, they portray him as just ones that are kind of just following their dad's orders, and that's it, not questioning it, just doing it. And I think that it would have been good for them to show Chris being the one that really wanted it.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
It would have balanced the things out too.
Yeah, because I mean, the oldest three brothers, it's not a thing of whether they want it or not. They kind of portray it as more of like, it's just like, yeah, I'll just do this thing because, what else am I going to do? And Pop wants me to do it. I want Pop to be proud of me. So it's more of like, they definitely portray them as not really having a choice but to get into the wrestling business, but they don't begrudge it. Whereas I think it would have been nice to show that you have a character in Chris that actually really wanted to be a wrestler really bad and was super passionate about wanting to be in the business, but physically not being able to be in the business. You know what I mean? And that would have been a great contrast.
Yeah, and now watching it, I still don't see why they. Me personally, I still don't see why. You could say time, but look, by the time the whole Kerry situation happened, Chris was. Oh, no, my bad. I'm sorry. You could put Chris in the movie not as much. If it's a time thing, you could still tell a good story with Chris without, because he was, first of all, he was, when these guys were big, he was still a little kid, so you don't have to use him for that much. But later on, you could have had it put him in just for a bit at least. You know what I mean? Because it would have been I think a nicer scene to have all the brothers there at the end. You know what I mean? And
absolutely.
And I think it was I think that they missed out completely, and they kind of dropped the ball with that. And so, in the end, for me to wrap everything up, what did I think of the movie? Like I said in the video before, no matter what, if it's good, it's like a halfway 2.5, just because Chris wasn't there, and I'm gonna stick with it 2.5. Even though some of the actors I thought were like. The actors that were good, like Zac Efron, the guys who played Mike and David, they were so freaking good. Yeah. And they made the movie
The guy played Fritz, too.
Yeah, the guy played Fritz.
He did good, too.
They made the movie so good to me. So freaking good that the highest I could... You know what? Even though I said 2.5, I'm going to say I'll probably give it a 3. And but that's only because I think they dropped the ball so hard with Chris. I still don't think it was fair. I still think that it was wrong. In my head, I don't know the people who made it, but I view them as wrestling. Wrestling. I don't want to say capitalists. I'll say what's that? When you're taking advantage of something. The word was just in my head and it just like left my head.
I mean, exploiters?
No. Oh, if the word comes to me.
I think I would probably. If 2.5 out of 5 for me as a movie, I'll be honest, it's probably not a movie I would watch. I'd maybe watch it once more just for posterity. It's a decent movie as a movie, right? It's okay. It's not great. There is some parts in it that seem a little bit disjointed, where something happens and then it's like immediately something else happens, and it just it's not very fluid the way they go into it. They go into certain things like. When they go from, like, with the whole thing with Mike, it's like instantly boom this, and then with the Kerry stuff, it's boom, it's instantly this. There's parts of it that felt kind of rushed and a little bit disjointed. Another thing too was Kerry's injury, right? The way they portrayed it in the movie, and I get why they did it for time constraint. They made it seem like it was way worse than what it actually was.
His whole foot was gone.
Well, not just like from the shin.
Yes,
like
from the shin
gone.
down.
Yeah,
where I know
gone.
that it was half of his foot was amputated.
Yeah, my understanding is only half of his foot that was actually amputated.
And in the movie, I mean,
it was like the entire thing gone, completely gone, and part of his like shin is gone. So I thought that was weird that they went to that extreme. There was other things too. That I thought when I was watching the movie, I get that they're making a movie more for the general audience as opposed to just wrestling fans. That's definitely the way it felt. I think that if you're a wrestling fan and really love the Von Erichs and are a stickler for accuracy, you may like certain things about this movie because there's some things that they did keep legit to what had actually happened, but there's a lot of things that were left out. There's a lot of things that they improvised. There's a lot of things that were condensed, and I get it for the movie. But the other thing too is it's a dark. Okay, so camera kind of cut there. Sorry about that. Just to kind of wrap it up though a little bit here. I guess I get why they did this, but it seems like any time that Hollywood tackles at least professional wrestling movies, at least of the ones that have become pretty big, like The Wrestler, even though it was a documentary Beyond the Mat, they always seem to portray just the dark stuff that happens in professional wrestling. I would have liked for them to kind of really portray or at least focus on a lot of the good stuff that happened too with the Von Erichs, even though again I get it, a lot of the tragedy kind of overshadows the good stuff when it comes to the Von Erichs, because that's really what unfortunately people remember more is the tragic stuff. But the positive stuff that is mentioned throughout the movie, they really kind of gloss over it. It's just like it's a small little victory, but it's not it's none of that stuff. It's not there long enough for you to really feel good about, because then the next scene it's really downtrodden and stuff like that. So for me, I mean I would overall give the movie a 2.5. It's not a movie I could see myself going back to. I would say people should watch it, and draw their own conclusions from it. There is some things, like I said, that they kept accurate. A lot of my issue with it is some of the casting choices, some of the pacing is kind of off a little bit too. Some of it feels disjointed. Some of the stuff isn't really all that fluid. It's an okay movie for what it is, but it's definitely one that, again, if you're a fan of the Von Erichs, know a lot about the Von Erichs, I'm not sure how much you'll like it. Maybe there'll be things you'll take away from it. But again, if you're very much a stickler for accuracy, you'll get a little bit of it, but you won't get a whole lot in it. There is definitely a lot of things that they took liberties with, and it shows. And I get it's to tell the story, but overall, I don't think it's a terrible movie.
Yeah.
But it's not like a super great movie.
I would still suggest that you guys watch it, because I do believe you guys are gonna have a good time about it. I mean, there's not a lot of wrestling movies out there that are based on or inspired by true stories with wrestlers, and when they do come out, they tend to not be good.
Yeah, this one was decent. I'll say this one was at least decent
because it is about the Von Erichs, and you're gonna enjoy it. So I would still suggest that you guys watch the movie, because with all that what we said, I mean, the casting is kind of weird and all that, but I'm telling you, you're gonna like Zac Efron's portrayal of Kevin.
I think he did well.
Yeah, and and the guys who played Mike and Kevin. I mean, Mike and
David. I think
it was really good. So the characters are extremely likable. The way they portray them are likable. Those guys, anyway, they're likable, and you're gonna enjoy it, because this is it's kind of rare that, I mean, you're a movie about the Von Erichs. Come on, either way, you're still gonna enjoy it. So I would definitely suggest that you guys watch it, because if you're a real hardcore wrestling fan, then you definitely will like it, or at least have a good time. Yeah, we did. I had a good time.
I had a good time watching it. I had a great time.
Yeah, I enjoyed it. So
be sure to check it out. That's all we got for this video. Stay tuned for the next one. Thank you guys so much. Peace.